I think we have to start with some news that broke today, and I'm sure Kobe and Josh and Matt will go into more detail Wednesday on Grid Tonight. But I want to get your thoughts on the in-season tournament that was announced today, coinciding with the arrival of Prime Video and TNT Sports coming back into the sport next year for the 2025 media rights deal. What are your thoughts on the announcement that we got today? Do you love it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you indifferent? Where do you stand on the idea of an in-season tournament for NASCAR?
Well, it struck me as kind of odd at first seeing the brackets and everything like that. The first thing I thought of was the NBA because they just started doing that this season from last fall going into the season for the NBA, and then they made it look different with all the home courts. They made them look with the very bold colors at all the different places, and really just gimmick style, making it something in the middle of the season, at the beginning of the season, that a time when people normally wouldn't be as engaged as they are later on down the hall, getting them engaged early, and so therefore keeping your watch time up as much as you can throughout the year. Well, I guess NASCAR is seeing that, and they want to say, what's the part of the year where we have not the max amount of people watching or paying attention or engaging with us? And I guess they're looking at that summer slump, I guess, and thinking, okay, well, this is where we can add some spice and make a little mini playoffs before the actual playoffs. So I guess we're getting that now. It's going to be interesting, and I think in my mind when I first saw about it, I thought, well, maybe this was something behind the scenes that Prime Video and Turner needed for this to happen. And if that's the case, then I'm all for it, because just like you've been, I wanted more than two national broadcasters taking on the schedule, and so we'd have a third party, or even now this time a fourth party that's going to be putting creative juices into the flow of. We know what we expect from a NASCAR broadcast, but what are some new things we can do to keep the ho hum from Fox and NBC and being content of staying the same? Hopefully Amazon Prime will do that, and TNT will do that. And now they have something to play with, which, if that's what it took for them to hop on board, I say so be it. It'll be kind of like the no bull that Winston did, but it's kind of stripped of all its gimmicky as far as naming, right? It's just the in-season tournament. We're not going to try to trick you. This is what it is.
I apologize to everybody that is as passionate as I am on playoffs and stage racing, and was maybe expecting me to go off a little bit more about this, but I don't have the energy, and I feel like I should. I feel like I should be like, oh, this is just another pointless gimmick. It's so unnecessary. It brings us closer to stick and ball sports. You're just copying the NBA. Why are we doing this? Who asked for this? But I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe it's the first sign of acceptance on my part, right? I feel like the ship sailed 20 years ago. As much as I voice my displeasure with the playoff system and stage racing and everything, I feel like, especially now that they tried walking stages back a little bit on road courses last year and didn't even get through the entire season before they said, forget it, we're throwing the cautions back out.
They couldn't do it.
Yeah, I know that the chances of us taking those things away from the sport in the future are virtually zero. So if you want to do something to spice up the middle of the season, I guess, do I love this? No. Do I think it's necessary? Absolutely not. Would I prefer, like you mentioned, Brandon, the Noble Winston sort of deal, or the Winston Million, or something like Sprint Tribe with the Showdown in 2011? I certainly would prefer that. I think this is a little elaborate and unnecessary. I don't love a bracket style tournament in a sport as chaotic as auto racing, but we already have a bracket to determine our champions. I mean, you have people like it's like March Madness now. You can fill out your playoff grid with all 16 drivers
exactly
at the start of the year. I mean, it's not as big a deal as we don't talk about bracket busting upsets in this sport the same way as we do in college basketball, but the format leaves it open to the point where you could fill out a bracket to determine your champion if you want to, so I mean, that we've had that in our sport now for a full decade. And I feel like, again, Just Be Diecast, I think, really summed up my thoughts on this better than I even could. I was, struggling to come up with a reason. I'm like, well, why? I got to try to explain to people why I'm not that upset about this, but he said, I like the in-season tournament better than the playoffs, and I don't think we need both. And I think that's where I am. If you want to do something that has, some sort of bracket knockout style action, this is the perfect time to do it. I think with new media partners coming in, put it in the middle of the season, give Turner and Prime something to hype up and talk about for their coverage, and let it be its own thing. And you point to the NBA example, Brandon. I think a lot of people were reminded of that today as well. I've been known to change my mind over time. I don't want to judge it too harshly, positively or negatively, until we actually see it in action. Because when the NBA announced it, I was like, okay, this seems kind of gimmicky, right? We don't really need this. The regular season still means a lot in terms of seeding and everything. I don't know if this is necessary. And I didn't like the courts. Let me be clear. I think the courts absolutely need to go. I mean, they were just the ugliest, eyesores that and just makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. I was not a fan of those, but the actual tournament itself, I thought was actually pretty good. I thought we got some higher quality basketball because the games meant a little bit more to, I think, the second and third string players, because there was the argument again, why does LeBron James need to be playing so hard for $500,000? Well, he doesn't, Anthony Davis doesn't, but the guys on two-way contracts with the Lakers G League team and floating back and forth between the main squad, like, $500,000 means a lot to them. That's going to double their salary. So they're playing their hearts out, so, and I think, guys on the Pacers who the Lakers beat in the final for the in-season tournament, I think it meant even more to them. So, I think that, again, I want to see it in action before I form an opinion too strongly one way or the other. But again, like I said, I don't have it in me right now to show a lot of frustration about this, as much as I feel like I should agree with, the people that are, upset and just think that this is just another gimmick and nothing more. I don't feel that way right now. And I don't think I'm going to feel that way until we get to 2025 and we get 5 very low quality races with, quadruple overtimes and people wrecking each other because they're worried about where they are in the bracket. I mean, I don't anticipate that to happen. If it does, I'll probably sour on the format. But until that happens, I'm kind of apathetic to it at this point. I don't have anything much more to say.
Yeah, I'm just going through like the inner workings of this huge bracket and like imagining like Michael McDowell versus Alex Bowman. Like, woo,
Yeah.
wow, so compelling. But like, I mean, granted, if everything goes right for him, then Alex Bowman's probably going to win that, depending on where they're going in the summer part of the schedule. I don't know. There's just a lot of. It'll be interesting to see how it actually plays out and plays out, and then the way that Prime Video, shows it on graphics, and everything that goes into that, and also Dale Earnhardt Jr. being a big part of this the new deal with the TV, and it may catch on. It may be a thing. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and his podcasting partner over at Dirty Mo Media, Denny Hamlin, I think taking a victory lap after this, because it was kind of it really builds off of his idea, right?
Yeah, he's winning $1 million bonus.
Yeah. And he might not need $1 million bonus in his paycheck. He might go win it next year, because that is the prize for whoever wins this is $1 million. And I get that, people were saying that just feeds into the idea that this is a gimmick, because, the All-Star race has kind of lost a lot of its luster even after we brought it back to North Wilkesboro. I think it doesn't excite people the same way that the, Winston Million did back in the day. $1 million certainly doesn't go as far as it used to, but I don't know. Like, even if you adjust for inflation, do you think if the winner got $2.5 million for this bracket challenge, do you think that the prize fund would be, really the deciding factor in terms of if you like it or not? I feel like people are going to judge it more by the format and how NASCAR decides to go about introducing it than they are however much prize money's at stake here. So, again, I want to see it in action before I form too strongly of an opinion on it either way. But that's just where I am. Less than 20. I mean, it hasn't even been 12 hours yet. We got this around noontime today on the East Coast, I think. I think I was on my lunch break when some people were texting me breaking the news. But yeah, I think it's far too early to judge a super strong opinion either way here.
Yeah, now that we start talking about it, it sort of kind of frustrates me, because like why do we need? It's kind of like a crutch for the actual playoffs. Like, why do you think the middle of the season is boring? Because we're just slowly adding to the playoff grid come fall. But so like if that's not working, so we're adding the in season tournament. Like
Yeah,
and then
and
also just right after the All Star race too, where we're also giving away $1 million. And oh yeah, we're going to give away another $1 million for this in season tournament. Either
yeah,
make the
I mean, yeah, and I don't disagree with that, and that's exactly my argument against the playoff system here. But again, I feel like the can of worms has been opened anyway. I mean, if they were announcing this in 2004, yeah, I'd probably be like, what are we doing here? This seems absolutely ridiculous. But it's 2024. We changed the name of our chase for the cup to the playoffs. We changed the name of our green white checkers to overtime. I'm still not convinced that we're not going to add a fourth stage everywhere. And I mean, Coca-Cola 600 is already like this. We're just going to rename stages quarters. I mean, we'll we'll continue to stick and ballify this sport as much as we possibly can here. But I don't know. It almost feels like this was expected, right? You see the NBA's trying it out, and it has some fans saying that they enjoyed it and it was relatively popular, and it added some importance to the middle of the season. And they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? I mean, I guess we shouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, I think it's a trend really, and I'm afraid the trend's going to wane, and then here we are still with the in season tournament, and NASCAR does not seem like one to back down from an idea. They're gonna stick by it and keep it. And I don't see them removing it is the thing.